Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Have you ever wondered why you procrastinate on important tasks? Or why you can't seem to forget that one embarrassing moment from middle school? Or maybe you've looked at a friend and thought, why did they do that? These are the kinds of questions that keep psychologists up at night. And today, we were going to dive into the fascinating world of psychology and figure out what it's all about. So, what is psychology, really? In simple terms, it's the scientific study of the mind and behavior. It's not just about reading minds or analyzing dreams, although those are small pieces of a much larger puzzle. Psychologists want to understand what makes us tick, our thoughts, feelings, memories, and the actions that result from them. It's a huge field, covering everything from how our brains work on a biological level to how we interact in large groups. To understand psychology, we need to go back in time a bit. While people have been thinking about the mind for thousands of years, modern psychology really got its start in the late 19th century. German professor named Wilhelm Wundt opened the very first psychology lab in 1879. He was interested in breaking down our conscious experience into its most basic parts, a bit like how a chemist analyzes a chemical compound. This approach was called structuralism. Around the same time, an American psychologist named William James had a different idea. He was more interested in the why. Why do we think, feel, and behave the way we do? He believed that our mental processes must have a purpose, that they help us adapt and survive in the world. This was known as functionalism, and it was heavily influenced by Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. Then, things got really interesting with the arrival of a certain Austrian doctor named Sigmund Freud. You've probably heard of him. Freud introduced the world to psychoanalysis and the idea of the unconscious mind. He proposed that our personalities and behaviors are shaped by hidden desires, fears, and memories, many of which are rooted in our early childhood experiences. He talked about the ID, ego, and superego, and the constant battle between them. While many of his ideas are debated today, his influence on psychology and culture is undeniable. As we moved into the 20th century, a new school of thought emerged that said, forget all this mind stuff we can't see. Let's focus on what we can observe and measure. This was behaviorism, championed by figures like John B. Watson and B.F. Skinner. Behaviorists believed that all behaviors are learned through interaction with the environment. They studied how rewards and punishments shape our actions. Think of Pavlov's dogs drooling at the sound of a bell. That's classic behaviorism in action. They showed us that our environment plays a huge role in shaping who we are. But some psychologists felt that both psychoanalysis and behaviorism were too limited. They argued that these theories ignored the unique qualities of being human, like our desire for personal growth, our free will, and our creativity. This led to the rise of humanistic psychology in the mid-20th century, with Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow as key figures. Maslow gave us the famous hierarchy of needs, that pyramid you might remember from school, which suggests we have to meet our basic needs for food and safety before we can achieve our full potential, or self-actualization. Humanistic psychology brought a more positive and holistic view to the field. While these historical perspectives were clashing, something revolutionary was happening. The development of computers in the 1950s and 60s gave psychologists a new metaphor for understanding the mind. This sparked the cognitive revolution. Cognitive psychologists started to study mental processes like memory, problem-solving, language, and perception. They saw the brain as a kind of organic computer, processing information and generating outputs. This approach allowed us to scientifically investigate the inner workings of the mind that the behaviorists had ignored. So where does that leave us today? Modern psychology is incredibly diverse. It's not about one school of thought winning out over the others. Instead, most psychologists today use what's called an eclectic approach, drawing on insights from all these different perspectives to get a more complete picture. Let's look at some of the major branches of psychology you'll find today. There's clinical psychology, which is what most people think of. Clinical psychologists diagnose and treat mental, emotional, and behavioral disorders. They're the ones you'd see for therapy. Then there's cognitive psychology, which we just touched on. They study our mental processes. For example, a cognitive psychologist might research how we form memories or why we're susceptible to certain cognitive biases, like a confirmation bias where we only look for information that supports what we already believe. We also have developmental psychology. These psychologists study how we change and grow throughout our entire lifespan, from infancy to old age. They look at physical, cognitive, social, and emotional development. For instance, why do toddlers have tantrums, and how do we form our identities as teenagers? Don't forget social psychology. This is the study of how our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are influenced by the actual, imagined, or implied presence of other people. Social psychologists study topics like conformity, prejudice, and attraction. Why do we act differently when we're in a crowd versus when we're alone? That's a question for a social psychologist. And of course, there's biological psychology, or neuroscience, which is all about the link between our biology and our behavior. These scientists study the brain, genetics, hormones, and the nervous system to understand the biological basis of our thoughts and feelings. They're the ones mapping the brain to figure out which parts are active when you feel happy or sad. There are so many other fascinating areas too, like industrial organizational psychology, which applies psychological principles to the workplace, forensic psychology, which works within the legal system, and health psychology, which focuses on how psychological factors affect our physical health. So, why should any of this matter to you? Well, understanding the basics of psychology is like getting a user manual for the human brain. It can help you understand yourself better, why you have certain habits, why you feel certain emotions, and what motivates you. It can also help you understand the people around you, improving your relationships with friends, family, and coworkers. Psychology gives us tools to deal with life's challenges. Concepts from cognitive behavioral therapy, for example, can help us identify and change negative thought patterns that lead to anxiety or depression. Understanding social psychology can make us more aware of group dynamics and less susceptible to manipulation. Ultimately, psychology is a science that's all about us. It's a journey of discovery into the most complex and fascinating subject of all, the human mind. It reminds us that while we share a common human nature, each of us is also a unique product of our biology, our environment, and our personal experiences. It's a field that's constantly evolving, with new discoveries being made every day. We've come a long way from one's first lab, but the core questions remain the same. Who are we? Why do we do what we do? And how can we live happier, healthier, and more fulfilling lives? Psychology doesn't have all the answers yet, but it gives us a powerful framework for asking the right questions. Thanks so much for joining me on this whirlwind tour of psychology. I hope it sparked your curiosity to learn more. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the human mind. Let me know in the comments which area of psychology you find most interesting. See you in the next one.